You know that little made in label you see on, well, everything? Your clothes, your phone, maybe even your coffee? We see it all the time. But have you ever really stopped and thought about what it takes to actually earn that label? Well, we're going to unpack the surprisingly deep story behind those three little words. Let's just take a simple t-shirt. Maybe the one you're wearing right now. It says, Made in Bangladesh. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But what if I told you the cotton was actually grown in India and the fabric was woven in China? Suddenly, it's not so simple. So who gets to make the final call on its nationality? This question, it turns out, is a much bigger deal than you'd think. So let's follow that t-shirt. Picture it. It's fresh off the factory line in Bangladesh, packed up and ready to be shipped to a big store somewhere in the European Union. But before it can even get on the boat, it has to get past a huge hurdle. See, for global trade to work, every single product has to have an official origin. And this isn't just for the tag you and I see. It's absolutely critical information for customs officials. It's what determines the tax or tariff that gets paid. And believe me, getting this right can save a company millions of dollars. So how does anyone decide this stuff? Well, it's not a random guess. There is a very formal global system that governs everything. And to really get it, let's go straight to the source, the official rulebook from the World Customs Organization. The whole system is built on this concept called Rules of Origin, or just ROO for short. The simplest way to think about it is this. ROO is the official instruction manual that customs agents use to figure out where a product really comes from, especially when it's made from parts from all over the world. And once you apply those rules, the product gets its official country of origin. Now, this isn't just about geography. It's more like the product's economic nationality. It is the final official answer to the question, hey, product, where are you from? But, of course, there's a twist. It's not quite that simple. Our t-shirt from Bangladesh can actually take one of two different paths to determine its origin, and which path it goes down has some pretty big financial consequences. On one path, you've got preferential rules of origin. Think of these as the special rules, the VIP pass. They're used when countries have a trade deal. So because the EU and Bangladesh have an agreement, our t-shirt can use these rules to get a much lower or maybe even a zero tariff. Then there's the other path, non-preferential rules. These are kind of the default general admission rules for everything else. Things like collecting trade data or applying penalties if a country is, say, dumping cheap products. Okay, so we know there are rules, and we know there are different types of rules. But what are the actual criteria? I mean, how does a customs official look at our t-shirt with its Indian cotton and Chinese fabric and make that final call for Bangladesh? Well, the first way is the easy one. It's called wholly obtained, and it's for products that are 100% from a single country. No question about it. Think of olive oil made in Spain, from olives grown in Spain, picked in Spain, and pressed in Spain. Or fish caught by a Spanish goat in Spanish waters. It's totally clear-cut. But for most things we buy, like our t-shirt, it's way more complicated. And that's where the second criterion comes in, substantial transformation. Here, the big question is, which country performed the last essential step that turned all the parts into the final product? For a t-shirt, that key moment is almost always the cutting of the fabric and the sewing. That's the magic. So even if the fabric came from somewhere else, because it was cut and sewn in Bangladesh, it was substantially transformed there. That's what makes it Bangladeshi. Okay, so the rules have been applied. The rule book says our t-shirt is officially from Bangladesh. Fantastic. But how does the exporter actually prove that to the customs officials in the EU? You can't just walk up and say, hey, trust me on this one. You need proof. You need paperwork. And to understand the paperwork, we got to be super clear on two terms that sound alike. First, we have RO, the rules of origin. Remember, these are the rules themselves. They're the abstract criteria, the instruction manual. They're not a physical thing. And then you have the COO, which stands for Certificate of Origin. This is the proof. This is the real, tangible, physical document that you hold in your hand that shows the rules were followed. So let's put it all together. The rules of origin, the ROO, are the process for deciding the origin. The certificate of origin, the COO, is the proof of that decision. That certificate is basically the t-shirt's passport. The exporter in Bangladesh gets it issued by an official group, and then they show that passport to customs in the EU to prove the t-shirt's identity, and most importantly, to claim that awesome zero tariff benefit. All right, let's zoom out for a second. We've been really focused on this one t-shirt, but what you need to realize is that this system is like the invisible architecture that structures pretty much all of global trade. Seriously, every product you can imagine that crosses a border goes through this exact same logic. That smartphone assembled in Vietnam from parts that came from South Korea and Japan, its origin was determined by a substantial transformation. That Spanish olive oil we talked about, wholly obtained. The system is absolutely universal. And this is why it all matters so much. This is about way more than just a label on a shirt. These rules of origin are the bedrock of global trade policy. They're how countries give benefits through trade deals, how they protect their own industries from unfair competition, how they compile accurate trade stats, how they enforce trademarks, and even how they decide who gets to bid on huge government contracts. It's everything. So the next time you pick something up and you see that Made in tag, you'll know. You'll know it's not just a simple statement of fact. It's the final chapter of a huge, complicated journey involving global supply chains, complex legal rules, and a critical piece of paper that acts as its passport to the world. So I'll ask you, what story will you see?